You're with Richard Glover on ABC Radio Sydney.
Well, around 2.3 million of people in this state have had COVID since the pandemic began. And although our beloved dogs have been celebrating us all being confined to our homes, the news isn't great for them either. Veterinarian Sam Kovac believes he's diagnosed the first case of COVID in a dog, in this state anyway. Patient 0 being Hamilton, the Shih Tzu. And Sam joins us here on Drive. Good afternoon, Sam.
Hi, how are you going? Great to be with you.
It's true that there have been cases overseas of dogs and other animals. You know, I think I've read about mink, for instance, and even the odd zoo animal.
That's right. Yeah, we started seeing reports from the very beginning of the pandemic in a variety of different species, but mostly our feline friends in zoos and pets and so forth. So I was always concerned that it would only be a matter of time before we start seeing it in our pets in Australia, and I guess the time has come now when so many people in New South Wales are isolating or have been at various points in the last 6 months. So I think we're starting to see more and more of it in pets.
And what were the symptoms that caused you to think, hey, hang on, maybe this is COVID?
So Hamilton came in to see us. He had some mild gastro symptoms. He just wasn't himself. His owners were saying he's just feels like he's got a cold or something. He's off his food. That was their biggest concern, that he used to love eating. They just couldn't for love or money get him to eat. He didn't want to get out of his bed. He was lazy around the house. So we did a whole battery of tests for all the usual suspects, pancreatitis, gastroenteritis. All of those tests came back negative. And so we're left scratching our heads what it could be. And he even went off to an emergency monitoring overnight. He got so sick at one point. So as part of research that I'm doing with Flinders University in Adelaide in COVID in pet dogs and cats, the owners agreed for us to swab Hamilton and take a blood sample from him too, ultimately proving that he was positive for COVID-19.
Wow. And what's the prognosis for COVID? Do they usually get over it pretty easily?
Yeah, Hamilton was back to normal within 3 days, which is great. He had just symptomatic treatment. He had some fluids, nutritional support, medication to make him get his appetite back. So just like with a lot of human patients now, it seems Omicron is a lot more mild, and there's no reason to think that it would be more of a severe disease in our pets.
Although it's mild in humans because most of us have had the vaccine. The dogs haven't had a vaccine.
They haven't. We are working on one, though. We're doing some research again with Flinders University in Adelaide, working with Professor Petrovsky down there. And we have vaccinated a few dogs and cats with the vaccine and proved that they have a really good antibody response with strong protection against both Omicron and Delta, which is quite interesting.
Okay, you just use the human vaccine, do you?
No, it's not a human vaccine. We don't use the mRNA type 1s or the viral vector ones. It's a totally new protein vaccine that's been used in people overseas in Iran. It's been studied, and hamsters, ferrets overseas as well. So there's quite a lot of science behind it. It's not approved for use in people in Australia, but hopefully it will be for people and animals soon.
Mm-hmm. And how do you think Hamilton caught it? Did he catch it from his owners, do you think?
Well, we still don't know, but we think that had to be the case, really, because he was fine. His owners caught COVID. They were isolating. He didn't go anywhere. He was at home with his parents because they couldn't leave the house. And then, amazingly, after a few days, he started getting sick. So there's nowhere else that he could have really caught it apart from his parents who were both isolating.
Okay. And I suppose the other question is, can the dog give it to another dog or even give it to another human?
We haven't seen that yet, and the Australian Vet Association has put out a publication saying that this was in February this year, while they're recommending now that if you've got COVID and you're isolating, to isolate away from your pet. There's been no documented cases of people catching COVID off their pets, so I wouldn't worry about that regard just yet.
Okay, and in terms of the pet catching it from you, well, it does sound as if it's pretty mild.
Yes. It's a bit hard to isolate from your pet, though, don't you think? Often they give us so much emotional support that if I was sick, I'd want to cuddle my corgis when I'm sick in bed.
Well, that's right. And if you were the dog, you'd want the liver treats to be kept up to you. Hey, Sam Kovac, thank you very much for talking to me.
Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, Sydney vet Sam Kovac, and the story of Hamilton, a dog with COVID, the first one that we've managed to identify locally, although there have been cases overseas where dogs and zoo animals, and well, the big thing was minks, wasn't there, where they had to put down large numbers of them because the level of transmission was so high. So yeah, it's not entirely a human disease.